Can everybody hear me all right? Everybody can hear me all right? I am Clark Russell Wever. Obviously, to some people, obviously, the town of Wever is named after me. I'll tell you that story a little later. But I was born in New York, Jefferson County, in 1835. Spent my youth there up to probably when I was 20 years old. Somewhere around 1855, 1856, I decided that I was going to have to go out and seek my fame and fortune. And so I took a journey actually to Mexico, and then went into Texas. I spent a couple years roaming around down there, just looking around. Didn't like the prospects of living down there. So I headed up to Mississippi and arrived in Burlington, Iowa. In 1858, pretty prosperous town back then. The railroad had already made it from Chicago, so people were traveling by railroad from Chicago to Burlington. Railroad bridge wasn't built yet, but there was also a railroad line being built from Burlington to Council Bluffs, completed in 1859. So there was a lot of commercial activity and a lot of migrants. A lot of people headed west to homestead, look for gold, whatever. They wanted a better life, and they were headed that way. So pretty prosperous time. So I basically was a money lender, but I'll call myself a banker and everything else in Burlington, Iowa. Did well there for a few years. In 1861, Civil War started, and naturally, people usually think when war starts, it'll be over in no time. It usually doesn't happen like that. You get surprises. So in 1862, I enlisted in the Union Army. Spring of 1862, went in as a captain in the 17th Regiment of the Iowa Volunteer Infantry. Promoted to Lieutenant Colonel that fall, 1862. And next spring, I actually was promoted to colonel after our colonel we had, he resigned his post, so I was promoted into his spot. And I was under the command of General Sherman, and we laid siege to Chattanooga that fall, which was a successful siege. And then the next spring, we went down to Atlanta, laid siege to Atlanta. Atlanta was not a very big town. Actually, Burlington was bigger than Atlanta at the time. I think even Fort Madison might have been close to the same size. But it was an important rail center, so we wanted to capture it. Took Atlanta in the fall of 1864. And then we were still down there, didn't know what we were going to do. Sherman hadn't made up his mind yet. And I was sent out with a brigade to guard a railroad bridge close to Atlanta. 750 men. Well, General Hood, Southern Army, he was still in the area, causing mischief, I should say. And I'm going to read you, this is a newspaper account, I'm going to read you what the message that he sent me and what I told him back. Now, I got to find that. So here's General Hood, the Southern Army. Here's the message he wrote me. I was guarding a railroad bridge across the river. Sir, I demand an immediate and unconditional surrender of the post and garrison under your command. If the place is carried by assault, no prisoners will be taken. J.B. Hood, Commander of the Army of Tennessee. And here's my message back to Mr. General Hood. I have to state that I am somewhat surprised at the continued paragraph. It reads, if the place is carried by assault, no prisoner will be taken. In my opinion, I can hold this post. If you want it, come and get it. So anyway, actually, we put up a vigorous defense. General Hood couldn't take our post, and we were getting reinforcements from General Sherman. So General Hood had to abandon the battle. Stayed the winter down in Georgia, and then the next spring was when Sherman made his famous march to the sea, ravaged the countryside. What he couldn't carry or eat or whatever, he destroyed. Left nothing for the Southern Army ravaged everything. Arrived in Savannah, laid siege to Savannah. But Savannah, normally he would have just bombarded Savannah, but he left it intact. Which is why even today you go to Savannah and still see a lot of lovely old homes. He did not destroy Atlanta. Then he went up through the Carolinas, did the same thing. He was pretty rough going on down here and everything. In February of 1865, before the Civil War ended, I was made a brevet general. I was a colonel, but I was made a brevet general, which is sort of a temporary, honorific position. It really doesn't carry any more rank. You're an area general. My permanent rank's a colonel, and no more pay. So just saying you've done a great job. Lincoln shot. Actually, the Civil War ended April 9th, 1865. Lincoln was shot the 14th of April, died the 15th of April. I resigned my commission in June and moved back to Southeast Iowa. Actually, I moved back to Fort Madison, not Burlington, and became a banker, again in the financial industry. 1866, married Laura McCon, which the McCon Barn stands about a mile outside of town up there on the curve on the road to Burlington. Even though she remarried after I died, actually. Became a successful banker, made a lot of money, and happened to own some land on the road to Burlington, just south of Skunk River. The railroad was coming through there in the late 1860s. They were building a line between Fort Madison and Burlington. I donated land for a depot in 1870. In honor of me, they named the town Wever, where the depot is at. And Wever is still there, bustling. No, I don't know. So, besides being a banker down here, and everything else, I had some other interests. One of them was with a company called Winter, Botham and Company, who had labor contracts with 2 state prisons. One of them was Joliet, the state of Illinois. The other was in Michigan City, Indiana. And these prisons, probably during the war, housed some southern prisoners, which is probably my connection with it. When I was up in Joliet on business, got ill, died in February 1865. Shipped my body back to Fort Madison by CB&Q Railroad, buried here along with my wife. So I died at a young age, 39 years old. Couldn't even write my own history. But anyway, that's it.